Hey everyone, Off the Mic Sports Network here, another edition of Off the Top Rope. I did get a chance to watch Grand Slam Australia late last night. And Man, this show was good wrestling, but in terms of this was a disaster for AEW. This is even worse of a disaster than I thought, because I had heard rumors about the whole ring debacle that had happened. Man, they had little step stools on the sides of the ring. What? Oh my god. And then I did it. If you go to my social media, you can see side by side Dynamite's ring, which they recorded on Tuesday for Wednesday's show, and then obviously what happened in Australia. This was embarrassing. This was embarrassing. And then in terms of the content of the show, you guys already know how I feel about Harley Cameron losing to Mercedes Moné. Mercedes with the worst finish in professional wrestling, hits the moneymaker, looked very weak off a botched move by Harley, and she just wins. And I have no optimism. Everybody's like, Harley shouldn't have won because she might get it. You might be able to build her something. No, this was just a case of an over talent being fed to effectively Hulk Hogan for the women's division, and they're not going to put her over. And maybe it's, maybe it ends up being Athena in her home city, in her home state of Texas, at All In. She's now got an 800-day title reign as Ring of Honor champion. Maybe that's what it is. But at this point, who cares? Who cares? So that's disappointing. Then I knew that, I had read the results. I hadn't watched the show, so I didn't know how some of these results had played out. So then the Death Riders just win over Jay White and Cope in a Brisbane brawl. First of all, Adam Copeland getting the fans, 10,000 people singing his music is still really, really cool. I know a lot of people are not the biggest fans of, Edge because apparently he doesn't put people over. But strangely enough, the criticism of Copeland, Adam Copeland, who's the number one contender for the world title, actually passed out to the Bulldog choke from Jon Moxley. So that was a surprise to me. A lot of people who are complaining that he doesn't put people over. That being said, this was a horrible call, because why would you try to sell your world title match in a couple weeks at Revolution when your number one contender is effectively losing the match? That doesn't make any sense to me. If you were going to do this in the correct way and do a basic fundamental booking, because now what this tells me is there's a decent chance that Cope wins the world title, which to me is the completely wrong decision. As much as I love Edge, Adam Copeland, I just think that's the wrong decision. And then if you go with Christian cashing in on him, it's a terrible idea to have a 50-year-old as your world champion in 2025. That's just my opinion. As much as I love and adore Adam Copeland, but to have him be your number one contender for the world title and have him lose in this match is inexcusable, in my opinion. You have Claudio Castagnoli in this match. And some people say, it's a no DQ match. Who cares? They had a bunch of people. Guys, Wheeler Yuta was way too involved in this match. And you have Jay White there. I wouldn't have liked to have seen if Claudio takes the fall or, effectively, passes out to a submission or something, then this looks a lot better. You're trying to build a world title match. So you have the Death Riders win? That doesn't make any sense to me. The opener between Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay against Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita was actually really, really good. Really sick. I mean, I love the way Omega and Ospreay work together. I think we could have built up a little bit more of the drama of two former rivals teaming together, but it sets up two really big matches at the pay-per-view. Takeshita against Omega for the international championship, which interestingly enough, I'm going to get to in a second. They're setting it up like it won't be that way, but this is AEW booking. And then steel cage match between Fletcher and Ospreay, which is interesting because I think Kyle Fletcher should win that match, as much as I love Will Ospreay, but Will Ospreay's also lost a lot. So the AEW is really in a no-win situation. It should be a fun match, but this is the problem when you have, you're trying to make new talent. You've got established stars, but then they're losing. It's confusing. So, um, but then like with Kenny Omega, so they're doing this Revolution International Championship series. So on Wednesday, this was announced that Orange Cassidy's going to face Roderick Strong, and the winner of that match is going to face Takeshita, and then the winner of that match they would face Takeshita the following week, and then the winner of the Takeshita versus Orange Cassidy Roderick Strong match would go on to Revolution and face Kenny Omega. Wait a second. Why is Takeshita, the champion, have to get to Revolution to face Kenny Omega? That doesn't make any sense. So it's effectively you're fighting for an international championship match in front of Kenny Omega. This is AEW booking in a nutshell. You could make a much more compelling story between Omega and Takeshita. Takeshita's beaten him twice in the last couple of years, and I would fully expect they're going to get to Takeshita and Omega at Revolution, and I would fully expect Kenny Omega to win that match and get his win back on Konosuke Takeshita, and then we can go down the road of what's to come later on. Speaking of Omega, Kazuchika Okada was on this show as well against Buddy Matthews. Buddy Matthews famously, if you saw the internet, it looks like he twisted his ankle getting into the poorly formatted ring. I don't know if it was the ring's fault or if it was Buddy's fault, but Buddy had a nice tribute to the attire that he was wearing to his wife, Rhea Ripley. Also, he did the Prism Lock, which was very cool, but a very nondescript, nonchalant finish where Okada just hits a low blow in the Rainmaker for the win. Here's my question. What point was there in Kazuchika Okada winning the Continental Classic other than keeping the Continental title? There was no point because you had a confrontation after that match with Kenny Omega that has not been referenced once since that happened. I think what we're heading towards, this is pretty basic, like not hard to figure out booking. I think what we're heading towards obviously is All In. And I would expect if Kenny Omega does in fact beat Takeshita at Revolution for the international title, what I would do is I would have the international title and continental title and just, unify those titles and just make it one. Because there's already too many titles, and what purpose does a continental title have anyway? And then when you come back around to the Continental Classic, like you don't have to have this tournament. And you could actually make it not for a championship and make it be it for the number one contendership at a later date. So, but yeah, what has that done? Okada's barely been on television. Like, it's just, man, it's baffling what's been going on here. And then there's the main event. Toni Storm taking on Mariah May. I said it here on the channel, even before this match happened, I knew that Toni Storm was winning this match. This whole pay-per-view was built around her. She's one of the faces of Australian professional wrestling. They're basically were trying to capture what WWE did with Rhea Ripley a calendar year ago at Elimination Chamber. Strangely enough, WWE was able to get the entire Elimination Chamber structure across. Yes, they had to deal with some pirate stuff that was real weird shenanigans, but they got it there. How could AEW not have their ring be able to get there? That's a separate issue. So then, a lot of finishers in this match. It was a good wrestling match. And then Toni Storm just wins on a roll-up? You end a title reign on a roll-up? And some people were referencing that, this was Toni Storm, like when she was doing her rocker gimmick and sort of acting. That was her finish. Guys, I don't care what story you're trying to tell. You don't end world championship reigns on roll-ups. You don't do that. Because first of all, this title run for Mariah May was not good. I've said that before on this channel. But to have her title reign end like that? Are you kidding me? Like that was bad. Like that was bad. That was a flat ending. And good for Toni Storm that, but on some level, she's kind of got to be pissed off at this too, and I don't think she will be, but Listen, her big moment, her big title win back is in front of her home country, but I'd say about half the world couldn't watch this until the next day because of just how botched this thing was. Like, this was, I said this on another video, this was an unmitigated disaster and a complete failure from AEW. They had this show announced 6 months in advance. They announced this, I believe, um, at All In London. They had this straightened out. They had Tony doing media out in the stadium, Suncorp Stadium. And then when ticket sales didn't go well, they changed it and quietly just became a TV show. It was so, guys, it was so bad that even television DVRs on YouTube TV were promoting it as Collision. Kevin Harlan on TNT's All-Star Saturday Night for the NBA said Collision is coming up next. Like, could you at least try to care? Like, admittedly, there was some good wrestling. There was some questionable finishes on this show. But you pair this side by side and you compare it side by side with what happened at NXT and Vengeance Day. NXT and Vengeance Day looked like there was some level of effort put in. Whereas Grand Slam Australia felt like they were just, going through the motions. Look no further than the ring. That's why people are pissed off. And I see a lot of these grifters and these people who are just trying to, mask and saying, why are you mad about the ring? I'm mad about the ring because this was supposed to be a major show for AEW. And it became just a glorified extended Collision in a foreign country. And admittedly, the crowd was great and it looked and sounded fine. But the ring was a product of, just the failure of epic proportions in terms of how to handle an international show. And for a company that has done 2 shows in London, you couldn't figure out how to do this in Australia. You couldn't figure out how to get the ring there. You couldn't figure out how to make this live on your streaming platform. Again, now seeing what has transpired has completely reinforced my opinion that this was a complete and utter failure of epic proportions. This was one of the great modern failures in wrestling history because you have one of your biggest stars win a championship on a roll-up on an almost full day delay because you couldn't figure out how to get it on television. Then you also have a homegrown star who is over and you don't give her the championship. And I know some people are going to say, well, you can't end Mercedes. Why not? What else do you have to lose at this point in giving Harley Cameron the win? And then you have her jobbed out effectively. No drama built to it whatsoever. We know what's going to happen. Harley Cameron's not going to be positioned in any way to win. And then, the opening tag match was fine, but then you have the Death Riders beat your number 1 contender. And then you have Okada beat a homegrown guy in a match that nobody's going to care about in a week's time. So, yeah, this was AEW in a nutshell. This was AEW in a nutshell because it's basically decent wrestling, which is what their company is, but really no meaning and no effort put into it whatsoever. So why should I care? Why should I care? It's disappointing because I want this company to do well, and there's a lot of talent there. But when they continue these patterns, and then, like I say, the complete just lack of care and just effort put into this show, because basically with limited and no effort, it was a decent show. But you could tell just on basic stuff that they did not really give a shit about this show. They really didn't. Anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.